Today we have a panel discussion with Ms. Kelly Kellem, Ms. Liz Lewine, and Mr. Chris Pratt. And so let me introduce you to these people. Kelly Kellem is a teacher, a financial coach, and currently a college admission and funding strategist. She's an expert in right education solutions, interviewing, FAFSA, and financial aid documents. So in essence, Kelly gets you there where you want to be without breaking the bank. Liz Lewine is an employment recruiter and IPEX certified coach, specializing in employment law, application tracking systems, career coaching, recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and such disciplines as Myers-Briggs, success factors, and DISC profiling. Liz maximizes the engagement between individuals and employment. So we're really happy to have her today. And Chris is a public educator, administrator, and coach for over 20 years. He was a college board consultant and an expert in integrated education technology, blended and digital learning, and curriculum development and deployment. He's currently a certified functional nutritionist and podcaster doing natural health education. Chris sets education and technology in action. So welcome to you all today. We're very happy to have you with us. So as you know, at Vision in Action, we focus on personal development solutions of all kinds. So today, one of the challenges we want to talk about is being fully self-actualized in the areas of education and work. And this starts at a fairly young age and is probably a continuous issue for us as we grow older. Doing it right can result in maximum benefits to oneself, of course, also to our employers and other interested stakeholders like family and friends. So let's hear what our guests have to say today. What I'd like to preface our discussion with is we want to recognize that we're addressing some of the issues that we've identified in the lifelong fulfillment process. A couple of those have to do with we often don't know what we don't know. This is a fairly specialized issue, and we wanted to treat it because it has such high impact, because economics, personal economics, really track education. So that's why we're doing it. The other is we often don't understand ourselves well enough at any given point to be optimally effective. We want to speak a little bit to that, and that's a consistent theme with lifelong development all along the way. And this will help us in the area of staying focused in our personal development. Things like the Pareto 80-20 rule, things like diminishing points of returns, return on investment, and so forth. It's kind of putting on a business hat on a personal basis. So with that said, let's assume for the sake of today's panel discussion that I'm an adult who has a 15 to 16-year-old child in high school. And we'll start at that point. And let's assume that, they're the typical 15, 16-year-old, somewhat emotional, certainly stretching their wings toward being independent. And they're struggling with the things of, new hormones, their social lives, and social media in general. So there's a lot of distractions in all of that, which go against staying focused. So we'll talk about some of that as well. So when I ask questions, I'm going to be trying to focus on being that parent and ask for these people's advice. So let's start off with the first. An adult who is a parent has a certain amount of knowledge. They've been through this process for themselves. They probably had a few speed bumps along the way, and they certainly didn't have the level of expertise we have assembled today to help them. On the other hand, we have a 15 or 16-year-old who is completely ignorant, probably, of most of this, except what they might receive in high school guidance counselor's office and that sort of thing. So with that, let's entertain some questions from our panelists, or some answers from our panelists about how do we bridge the gap on making this a factual discussion, a results-oriented discussion? How we can choose our path when we really are very new to an idea of what even makes us happy or fulfilled. And so let's start off with Chris. I think that might be a good place. Chris, we'd like to hear from you, and then the other two of you, please chime in as you think appropriate.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. So, in my experience, I've worked most of my career with kids in fine arts, and it's kind of a different world because you have lots of kids that are not really involved in lots of activities at school. And then you have fine arts kids who tend to be over involved. They're involved in everything. They play basketball, they play, golf. They're on the golf team, they're in the marching band, they do dance, they do cheer, they do all the stuff. And so I've kind of seen both ends of the spectrum. And what I would say, to that parent who is raising that high schooler and trying to help them to focus in and say, like, where are we headed? I think that it is super important that kids, at whatever level, have community around them, and that they start getting involved in an activity. One of the things that I know to be true is a lot of times, if they are looking to go to the college level, universities are looking for well-rounded people. They're looking for people who absolutely have had experiences, not just the kid that went and made straight A's. There's value in both. But what I've seen, the most successful kids are the kids that are invested in something. But there is a balance, because then there's also that kid that gets, spread really thin because they're doing so many activities that they can't ever really get good at something. And so they always kind of feel like they're just chasing their tail. So I think as a parent, it's important to help your kids to have those experiences and try different activities, but then really start to say, hey, here's the one that I really see you succeeding at, you're really excelling at, or here's where your passion seems to be, and kind of be that outside of their emotions and outside of their head to say, you may love all these things, but I see you succeeding here. What are your thoughts on that? And then kind of guiding them and helping them to make those choices. Because I think by the time a kid gets to be a junior or a senior in high school, really even a sophomore, they need to have made some choices and started to dedicate themselves to excellence, because that is what is going to shape them so that whenever they do get into either the workforce or into a university setting, they have that perseverance and that fortitude to say, like, whatever comes my way, I now have the skills to do it. And I believe that it is through activities that kids really gain those skills.
Okay. A question to elaborate on that. In your mind, does testing and psychological profiling assist this effort? Is it appropriate at that age? Or is that something that simply can't come, add to this full plate of activities that you're talking about?
I'm not going to say there's no place for that, but I've experienced with the students that I've worked with, that is not a driving force, because kids take these kinds of assessments and tests all the time, and it gives them ideas. And, they'll come to me and they're like, this says I'm supposed to be a baker. I don't want to be a baker, and so I think there's limits to that. I think in some cases, those kinds of assessments and those kinds of surveys and things can start to help kids think in a direction. But really, how do any of us know what we like to do until we've tried it? You can like the idea of doing something, but until you really put, the pencil to paper, if you will, and you start in the activity to see what does it feel like to you, do you even know if that's really something you want to do?
Okay. Liz, Kelly, any comments to add to that, please?
Well, I really agree with Chris on the idea that getting involved in activities is huge. Colleges aren't so much looking for really well-rounded people right now as they're looking for well-rounded classes, but they want to see students have kind of do a deep dive on activities, find something that they really align with. find something that means something to them, and really dig into it. So what he's talking about when Chris discusses students that are involved in the fine arts, that's something that colleges want to see. They want to see them delve into something specific and gain the experiences and the lessons in life from those experiences, as opposed to everything being just about the books. And that's interesting because our show is beyond the books, but that's why we do that. It's not just about the books for the colleges, and the testing, whether or not that's important. I 100% agree that getting out there and being involved in something such as doing an internship or doing an informational interview or a job shadow to really understand what a job entails before they decide to major in that and think that they're going to do that for the rest of their lives is super important.
I 100% agree with both points. And as a recruiter who has done a lot of early careers recruiting, I can tell you right now that what I look for other recruiters, hiring teams, we want people that have done a lot of extracurricular activities, especially, in high school, during college. It's not just if I'm looking at 2 resumes for an early career, for an entry-level position, right out of high school or college, and one resume, and they both went to the same school, have the same, maybe studies, but one person did a bunch of, extracurricular activities, joined, did things in fine arts or even in athletics, and then one person didn't. Obviously, I'm going to be interviewing the person that showed some characteristics and showed some initiative in terms of, joining any clubs or, again, doing internships, job shadowing, etc.
Okay. So let's back up on a timeline. I think a couple of you, I think I know, have talked to Kelly before, and maybe you have a comment about this, is that kind of activity level needs to be something that happens pretty early in high school. That if you wait till you're 18, it's probably a little too late to have enough traction and enough broad experience at that point. So maybe you want to comment about how and what and when is appropriate.
I played sports throughout my whole childhood, I guess you could say. Starting when I was 11, I played on the basketball team until I stopped growing and everyone else grew. And true story. And then I took my talents to volleyball, and I started playing volleyball. Again, I'm still short, so I was a setter. But the point is I played basketball at 11, and then I played volleyball at 12. But prior to that, I played soccer, AYSO. So I think it could start as early as, 6, 7, 8, you play soccer, right. Little league. Another thing, that I did that I thought, and I actually recommend all my clients to do, is I was in drama, because it helps. Drama is really, really great because, and you could be in drama in your school. You could join a drama club, which I did also. It helps you learn how to interact with all different types of people and sort of learn the art of storytelling. And I think that is really important in all aspects of one's life, starting from, I guess now they call it middle school, elementary school, middle school, and high school.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put on my dad hat again. and I'm going to ask the question of, okay, well, my 15-year-old really doesn't have a solid lock on the kind of work that they might want to do. And hence they're experimenting, right? They're trying all of this stuff. So my suspicion as a parent is that sending them to college is a continuation of that exploration in part, and not necessarily focused on what work is appropriate. In other words, they're probably going to find it out later down the line once they're in college. So one of my thoughts as a parent is college the appropriate track? You know, if they're further defined in what they want and a tech school is in that realm, maybe that's appropriate. Or maybe these days, online resources for an undergraduate level degree is just as viable and saving your money for, the master's and the PhD once you really know might be also a viable option. So I'm curious. I've only got so many resources to throw at it as a parent, and I want to do right by them. So what are your thoughts?
Are you asking one of us specifically, or is this one open for discussion?
It's open for discussion, please.
I definitely have a thought in that. And let me start by saying that I 100% agree that people should not go to college to figure out what they want to do. I do want to add, though, that there are a lot of colleges today, and I'm seeing more and more of them, especially here in the Midwest, that do not have the students declare their major officially until the end of their freshman or sophomore year. What they want them to do is do a lot of career exploration. They are encouraging them to go out and do internships in that field, do the job shadows, and to really get their feet in it to make sure that that's what they want to do before they officially declare a major in that particular field. Now, granted, not all colleges are doing that. Do I think that going to college to figure out what you're going to do is the right stretch? No. But I do think it really starts in high school, not just with the exploration that the tests and the different assessments that we talked about, but it also starts by definitely doing internships even the summer before college or early in college. We need to do things, and sometimes a gap year is the right thing to do. And I know Liz will agree with me there. Sometimes a gap year is absolutely the right thing to do. But there are some colleges that you don't necessarily have to go in with a declared major, or they want you to really make sure that's the right major for you before you put all your eggs in that basket.
Yes, and I agree with Kelly wholeheartedly about that. I also, as she mentioned, I think a gap year is essential. I have to be honest, this is maybe a little hot take on my part, but I actually feel like every single person should do a gap year. And it could be during high school, during college, after college. I actually just met someone who is a coach, and she is doing a gap year now, and she is in her 40s. So, gap years are really are so important because that will help you figure out what it is that you really truly enjoy and what maybe kind of major you want to pick when you are ready to go to college, if you're ready to go to college. I also, I don't know if this is, happens in the Midwest, but here in California, every single high school has a career day here. And that really helps the students because they get to see what kind of fields are out there that might interest them. There's a lot of people that come in and talk about all the different types of careers. I know at my alma mater, my high school, they did a career. They had a 2-day career fair this past spring, and it was really, really helpful for the students to learn about all the different types of industries, what it takes, what are the soft skills, which I'm really big on, and what kind of experience you need, whether you do it at an internship, job shadow, et cetera, just kind of what it is that they are, some of the things that are great about these careers and some things that aren't good.
Okay.
So I would add, this is a powerful discussion, a very powerful conversation. And I agree with what everyone is saying, but I also want to kind of throw in this angle. I don't think that it's a bad thing that kids, 15, 16-year-old, don't know what they want to do yet. Most adults, 30, 40, and 50 years old, they really don't know what they want to do yet. And I think as a parent, my focus and my emphasis shouldn't be so much on we've got to figure out your career, we've got to figure out your path. And unfortunately, at least where I am in Texas, that is a big deal. Like when a kid gets into high school, they have to declare a path and they have to start making a decision of, I want to go the arts route. I want to go, the math and science route or like whatever. And then their whole high school experience oftentimes is catered to that idea. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because kids at that age and even older, our feelings about what we like change based on how we wake up in the morning and what we eat, And so we're really asking them to do things that we're focused on the wrong thing. I think what we've got to be focused on is character development. And I think as a parent, what I should be focused on is, am I helping my kid and am I guiding my student in a path that's going to prepare them for any interest they have? Am I developing them integrity? Are they developing perseverance? Are they developing communication skills? It's the soft skills that Liz was talking about. Those things are really the most important. And then when they get to a point where they say, you know what, I think I like dog grooming, then they're going to be a successful dog groomer. And, to speak really to what Kelly said a moment ago about how being in the activities really teaches them a lot of life lessons. I didn't realize how powerful that was until I had a student who graduated. He was a great kid, really smart, straight A kind of student, but fairly average, if you will. But he didn't know for sure what he wanted to do. He thought he wanted to go be a teacher, but he didn't know. So he took a gap year off, right? And he was one of my best students. And I say that from the standpoint of he was always focused. He was attentive. He participated. He volunteered. He did all the things that we were advocating for in our program. And he was learning how to be a kid of integrity. He was learning how to be a student who was disciplined, who went above and beyond, who served others, all those things that are important in life. He graduated and suddenly found an interest in day trading. And also his dad was a trucker. So he decided he wanted to open a trucking business. So the guy started doing his own research on his own, doing all the things. And within 2 or 3 months of graduating high school, he had already made over $26,000 on his own, just doing these things. And so he called me to tell me about it. And I was like, okay, you make more money than I do at this point. So like, what's your secret? What are you doing? And he said, Mr. Pratt, I just do the things that you taught me how to do. He goes, I just took all the lessons that you taught me through the band program about how to be on time, how to be committed, how to organize my thoughts, how to organize, how to communicate, all that. And I just applied it to these businesses and now I'm being successful. And so I think really as a parent, we've got to make sure that we help people see, like we've got to develop good people. And when we develop good people, they will be successful.
And that is a lot of what the colleges are looking for today. They have oodles of students who all have the good GPAs, who've all been part of the right club, shown the right leadership. What they're really looking for now is a different type of leadership. They want to see the teenager who has gone out there and gotten these life lessons. And quite honestly, they're looking for values. In fact, a lot of the essays, the best way to approach the essay is by helping the college see what values are important to you. I know Liz and I both have a values exercise that we do with our students. So it's the values and building the good person, as Chris said, is really important because even with colleges, and I'm not just talking about getting into college, that's important in life, in a job or in college. But going into college, they're actually looking for people who are going to be good representatives of their college once they graduate and are alumni.
Yes. And I talk about this and I will scream it from any rooftop mountain. It is about life skills, and it's life skills and, more important, soft skills. And I can tell you right now, every single recruiter at every company, whether it's where I worked at Spotify, SiriusXM, even Starbucks, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all about the soft skills and how you can relate to others, how you communicate, if you have a growth mindset, which I talk about all the time. And really, are you going to be the type of person? And it's just like in college. Will you be a good representation of the company after you graduate from college or after you graduate from high school? Like, are you going to be the type of person that is going to grow within the company, that is coachable, manageable, and will, kind of, hopefully, I mean, the idea is you want to grow within a company and not be all these people that I interview all the time that have, 1 year, 1.5 years, and they're moving on and they're job hopping. You've got to have those life and soft skills. It's the most important thing, I think.
Okay. My personal experience was I was a late bloomer, and I had exactly that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to college based on my folks' faith in, that being the right thing. And there, of course, there's components of that were right, but I wasn't ready to engage the world at age 22 by any means. So I can hear your points very well. Why don't we look at moving on here, because we have a limited amount of time. And one of the questions I have for you as the parent, again, with my parent hat on, is how do we have this conversation with my 15-year-old? Because quite frankly, they don't think I know anything. We're at that stage, right? They're into getting independent, and of course, I'm too old for them, and there's other stressors. How does a kid access or become cognizant in the facts you just shared so that they can have the intelligence you're talking about and think about it and use it to make good decisions? Because my credibility is very low. Yours is not. So can you speak to that? Because obviously the child's a component of this. You can't leave them out in the planning process. A parent alone, I think, is not enough.
Communication.
Okay. So are you going to talk to my 15-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Good.
Team coach, of course she will.
Exactly, Kelly. Hire a coach.
Good.
No,
I need help.
I agree with what Liz says, though, about communication, because a lot of it is about sitting down and saying, hey, as Chris said, or as somebody else said earlier, I think it was Chris, these are the things that I see you being good at. That's what I ended up doing with my own stepkids, and that's what I've done with a lot of my students. We start with, where are your strengths? And that's true even if I'm working with a student who is in 7th or 8th grade, which, by the way, is where I like to start, because we can set them up for success in high school instead of them having to choose what they want to do. Say, okay, where are your strengths? What do you enjoy doing that you're really comfortable with, that you're doing well with? And that also, like Chris said, the parent coming in and saying, and this is where I see you doing really well, because that a lot of times kids don't know. I mean, there's so much in front of them. They like doing so many things. Sometimes they need somebody who's got this different perspective to come in and say, you love doing this. You love business. Why don't you become an entrepreneur? You've got this idea. Have you thought about starting a business in high school? I've got a current student, very similar to Chris, who went from wanting to become a veterinarian, worked at a vet hospital and decided that wasn't for him. But then he got into some business things. He now has his own business. He's just starting his senior year in high school. Well, he's a little bit into it, but he has his own business and he's going to be majoring in entrepreneurship. It takes stepping back and saying, okay, I've got this strength. I've got this interest. Mm-hmm. How can we as parents help them turn that into something that might be something they want to do in the future?
Exactly. I 100% agree with Kelly, because again, as it's really up to the parents to have those very, it might be, difficult conversations, but you have to have those conversations and put on your inquisitive hat and, ask your child, your teen or middle schooler, what do you see yourself doing? What are your, what do you love to do? What gets you excited? What gets you motivated? What motivates you? Have you even thought about the future? And I actually think it's okay to ask that, in middle school, have them do a visualization exercise, which I also do with my clients. But I also think, I like to say, I actually had a client where I told the mom to have a date, take her daughter out for a date.
Mhm.
And whether it was going to lunch, I said, or going to go get ice cream, and have that talk, just mom and daughter. What do you want to do? What are your strengths? What do you think you're good at? And also, like everything that Kelly just said, but also parents know their child the best.
Mhm.
So they know what their kids, strengths are probably, and they know the areas, I don't like to say weaknesses, areas of development,
Right.
but the parents know best. And so it's just asking those open-ended questions.
Okay.
I think one of the best ways to do this more easily and successfully, because it's not easy, and I think this is powerful what we're saying. And I agree. Like sometimes it's a situation where you do need that outside person, and it may be somebody totally out of the family that says, like, I kind of see you from a different non-emotional point of view. But I think as parents, we need to set ourselves up to where this is the culture of our family. Like from the age of like 7, 8, 9, why can't we start helping our kids see their purpose, helping them see their passions, helping them see, like what is some vision? What do you enjoy doing? Let them volunteer, let them do these kinds of things. And that we talk about this, and it's part of the family dynamic. We talk about business. We talk about finances. We talk about, it's not a taboo thing that we can't let our kids know how money works. Like that's the worst thing you can ever do.
Mhm.
And, I think that, like I have, my oldest is about to be 10 years old. And, we have a goal this year for her to start her own business and to see what that's going to look like. And she's doing it in the vein of what she enjoys. She loves drawing and painting. So we're like, great, we're going to go to some pop-up markets. We're going to sell your art and we're going to see if you can make a business out of it, because it's something she wants to do. But if I wait until my daughter's 16 years old, and then one day I'm like, well, what do you want to do with your life? This is like really far away, like we've never had this discussion before. You just bossed me around my whole life. So I think we need to start these kinds of conversations early and give them those opportunities and developing that really strong family dynamic.
I just want to add to that, Chris. I love that you said that, because I will say this, just using my own experience. We had family dinner every single night. I have a sister, the four of us, we had our dinner, and my parents made us talk about our day, made us talk even all the bad things that happened. And for me, my sister went to Brown and I did not go to college. And so it was a very different conversation when it came to me. I'm talking about all my struggles in school, and my sister was like, oh, I got an A and A and A, and I love school. And I'm like, I hate school. And so we had a completely different dynamic at our dinners. But honestly, until I was like 16, 17, we had family dinners, and my parents would make us talk about, what it is that we, everything about us, like, what did we enjoy doing in school or not school, or extracurricular activities? Maybe if we could use some of those skills in our future. For me, I wanted to be a sportscaster. And so my dad, he would take me to lots of Dodger games. Yay, Dodgers. And it was really interesting. I hated math so much, but he would use sports to help me with like math. And so I think that can be part of like a family culture, is figure out what really gets your child excited. And, if they struggle in something, figure out a way to kind of marry something that they're really interested in with a learning experience.
Mhm.
or
Okay.
teaching.
I'd like to go back to the comment Chris made. He mentioned finances. Um, how aware do you think, a 16-year-old should be, or an 18-year-old, about what it's going to take to move them in their own directions? Do they have to be the driver behind that?
No.
Or is it the parent?
The parent, I didn't mean to cut you off. The parent needs to be the driver behind that. And I definitely encourage, and I'm an advocate of that money conversation happening at an early age. Like Chris said, kids pick up something about what's going on financially in the family, whether you tell them or not. So you might as well tell them what's going on, because otherwise their relationship with money is going to be affected. And I
Mhm.
say that having been a financial coach. So my biggest advice to families around money is have that money conversation early. If your teen is involved in travel sports, let them know what the cost is, not from the perspective of making them feel guilty, but helping them understand that families willing to make that investment, you need to understand what the investment is and that there are other sacrifices that are happening, but from a very gentle perspective, just so they understand how money works. And then starting starting freshman year of high school, having the conversation of, okay, this is how much money we have set aside for trade school, for setting you up with a business, or for going to college. This is what we're looking at. So you will need to either get scholarships, or you will need to get a lot of merit money from the colleges, or you will need to take out loans, and we can only help so much. I think that conversation has to happen. And the reason I like to have that happen early is twofold. Not only from understanding how money works, but also I see families all the time who have their child get into their dream school. I read something the other day where a parent was saying, my son got into the dream school. He did everything he was supposed to do. And now we're having to tell him we can't afford it. Well, that could have been avoided if that conversation had been had a long time ago and they had looked at, okay, this is the range we have to look at. Having said that, I don't encourage families to only look at state schools. They need to know that private schools discount their tuition for almost up to 50%, for a lot of students, actually more than that. I've got a student right now who got into a $48,000 a year school. He got merit money to cover 42,000 of that. And he's not an A student. It's possible. So there's a lot of research that has to happen, whether it be trade school, going on a gap year program, or going to college, but the money conversation needs to start early.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add, it's so important that kids, and even starting, as Kelly said, young, understand the value of a dollar.
Right. So you got it. This has to be, as Chris indicated, integral as you raise them, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Missed that boat.
Most of us did.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's never
assume,
too late. It's never too late.
never too late. Okay. So let's assume now that we're at that point. I've had the benefit of looking at your various websites, and I'm dangerous because I know a little bit now. So what is available? Let's talk about what's available to the prospective high school graduate. You talked about a break year. I've done that in a fashion. I can get behind that sort of thing. What other things in terms of Kelly enumerated scholarships, internships, that kind of thing? Liz, I think you have a different view on that. How do we sort through that with my prospective student?
I mean, I don't think, yeah, no, I don't think we have yes. I mean, you mean in terms, can you clarify, like in terms of finding an option, or?
Well, well, the first question comes, I guess the precursor to that would be, is my student, or, my child at this point doesn't exactly know what they want to do. They're not localized on something. Now, let's say I have another child and they're a geek and they pretty much know they want to go that route. And so they need to learn basic programming. They need to go that route. And so on the one hand, I have one who may not have a well-defined, they need to experiment more. On the other hand, I have another one who has a pretty clear capability. They're jazzed by it, excited by the opportunity. I think I see those as two different paths. So maybe you might want to speak to that.
So yeah, I mean, listen, I was part of that family. My sister was super academic and it was very, very clear from age 2 that she was gonna probably go to an Ivy League. I probably from the age 2 was also it was very clear that I probably was not going to go to college. So, no, I'm kidding. It doesn't start at age 2, but it does start very, early in life, I do think. Because again, the parents really understand and see the difference between the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 siblings. So I think honestly, and I personally feel like in that situation, you do need probably outside help to have someone really come in that is not, emotional, as I think Chris mentioned before, and understands, look, I'm coming in it from, I don't know y'all. And so this is what I'm seeing. And this is this is from all the conversations. And, when a family does hire a coach, the coach does, questionnaires, assessments, and that really does help you figure out maybe what path. Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Didn't mean to cut you off. I don't really see that as two diverse paths the way most people do. I see that as one student believes they know what they want to do, and one student doesn't know, and they both have to get out there and get actual experience in. One has to do some experience in a variety of things. And in the case of the student who doesn't know what they want to do, again, we start with the strengths and might even try a couple of shop classes, a couple of trade classes, as well as the academic classes. That's the path I have taken with one of my students because he wasn't sure what he wanted to do and he likes to work with his hands. A different student who thinks they want to code and they think they want to go a particular direction needs to get into those coding classes, needs to get into some coding activities to find out if that's really what they want. And if it is, then do projects. Not only are the projects important for the schools to see, for colleges to see, they love to see that somebody is invested enough to actually do a project and follow it through. Following it through is probably the key thing there. But the teen then says, yes, I like this enough that I can take this on. I can do this project with some assistance, and I can follow through and I can see myself doing this and studying this. So in both situations, I still see that they need to get out there and get more experience.
100%. And I will say, I've done a lot of technical recruiting, and when I was at a company called GoodRx, we hired an entry-level engineer who did not go to college, but he loved development, and he was an iOS developer. And when he was in high school, for fun, he created an app, and he used that as part of the interview process. He talked about how he started doing this in high school because he was always, he was a gamer, and then he just loved working on all sorts of code. Also, and I will say this I believe people can do this, definitely in college, but even in high school, there are so many boot camps, like software boot camps.
Right.
And I highly recommend that if anyone is interested in code, whether in high school or college, start getting into a boot camp.
Right.
Like a general assembly.
The only thing I might add to that, because that's really great. I might add, I think the value of internships and or, getting in programs that allow you to kind of shadow that job, because there's a lot of kids that they're really interested in coding or whatever, but it's in their environment and their atmosphere, and they don't understand what it means to be in the workforce doing that. And, I know for me, when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, right? So my high school offered a class for future educators where we got to go and spend like 6 weeks in a classroom with a teacher during our time, and we got to shadow them and like help out and things. And it kind of gave us that experience to say, oh, this is what it really looks like to be a teacher. It's not just my idea. So I think finding those opportunities, even if it's, contacting a local business and say, hey, my child's really interested in this, could they come and observe for the day, and just so that way your kid can come home and say, okay, now you saw what it looks like in action. Is that the kind of thing you'd want to do every day?
Yeah, exactly. Because I've done a ton of internship hiring. Now, granted, this was at corporations and we hired interns that were in college, but I agree with you. I think if you could start doing internships in high school, I know there's a few high schools here in California that will allow, as a senior, you can do an internship as part of your senior year. And they actually will also get paid, and it'll apply to school credit, which is really great. One of the things, and Chris, I think you mentioned that, like internships, and I know Kelly agrees on this too, is it really teaches you what it is that you really like and what you don't like. I did so many internships because I thought I wanted to be like a detective. And so I did a ton of, I worked for a public defender and realized, oh no, no, I don't think this is the right path for me, because I'll have to join the police academy and I'm not in shape enough, and I probably won't be. So, it's kind of like, it really does help you figure out what it is that you like and what you don't like. And for example, I had another student who thought she wanted to be a graphic designer. And so she did an internship at an agency and realized how much she did not want to be a graphic designer. And it really was a hard thing for her because she had her heart set on being a graphic designer. She's very talented, but she wants to do something else in the design world, but she just does not want to be a graphic designer anymore. And she came to me crying, being like, this is all I thought about. And then I did this internship at this agency, and I cannot believe, but this is not what I want to do anymore.
Okay. So let's jump ahead and let's assume we did the internships. We might have done junior college. It might be college as well, whatever, but they're getting close to that point of really engaging the workforce. They have an idea about what they want to do, what they like, but now we have this issue of going out there in the big wide world and getting recruited, showing themselves to good advantage during interviews, providing the best value proposition to a potential employer. So can you add some perspective on that for us parents?
Well, I can definitely say that when I help students choose a college, because I'm always working to help them find the best fit college for them. One of the things I'd look at is the return on investment. Some of that has to do with what the typical salary is coming out of that college. And I have found that, and studies show that a lot of people will end up with their first job near their college. They're recruited very near their college because a lot of times that's where they did their internship as well, or they were working there while they were in college. So I also look at the return on investment and the salary in that specific area. And sometimes if two colleges are almost identical and the programs that the students want to take are equally well regarded, I will suggest the college that has the better, I guess I would say either the better job opportunities after college, near the college, or I will say take the one that has the higher starting salary coming out of the college so that you can get that return on investment, because none of us want to see a student spend $250,000 on college and make $40,000 a year.
Right.
That does not make sense. I would not recommend that a student go to a college in that case, or not that particular college. And so I'm always looking at return on investment when I'm suggesting the colleges that these students might want to go to.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
and that applies to work environments as well.
yeah. One of the things we do with the Lifelong Fulfillment Initiative is we really try and make sure people understand that in the U.S. economy, 20% of the people accrue 80% of the salaries that are available in any one year. So it's heavily skewed toward those that are making 125,000 or more per year. They do very well, and it takes pretty serious education to do that in some instances. The vast majority of the working public doesn't make that kind of stuff. So it's the old Pareto rule in reverse. And, I'm highlighting this so that people that are listening to our discussion here actually understand some of the facts. That's circa 2020 economic census. And that, performance in terms of salary and being employed and things like that does track very closely to the education and experience you come to the table with. Chris, did you have any ideas there?
Nope. I think that was good. I think we covered it.
Okay, good. One of the other things we also do is in the Lifelong Fulfillment Initiative is we try to get people to look at both their individual and family income statements so that they understand their position money-wise, and then they can understand the value of an internship in terms of money and experience, and or the value of hiring a coach as yourself, Kelly, or Liz, might be available. What's that return on investment and so forth. So there's trade-offs. Life is full of these kinds of things that are also dealing with the constraints that are impact that particular situation. So those are other things. So we're coming toward the end. I'd like to offer you each a chance for any final comments you'd like to make before we wrap up.
I would go ahead, Liz.
I guess I would say, as a, if you're a parent, really, really just communicate with your child and have those difficult and hard discussions that we talked about. Ask questions. I'm a big believer, never assume and ask questions.
I would say that the return on investment for coaching for parents is huge.
Yes.
For example, with Chris, now Chris does a different kind of coaching. He does nutritional coaching, but when you hire a coach, you get somebody who's an expert who can get you there faster. And with Liz, she can help parents avoid some of the pitfalls and some of the emotional issues that families go through when they're deciding college or not college. With me, by approaching things early and knowing how to get into the right college, and how to save money, the fee that they pay me is exponentially returned for them. And I think that's probably true for all three of us.
Yes, Kelly, you well said. And also coaching helps families and especially teenagers, they're listening to a different voice. You know, my mom could say the sky is blue 1,000 times, and I'll be like, yeah, okay. But if someone else comes and says, hey, guess what? The sky's blue. I'm like, oh yeah, the sky's blue. Sometimes you really need to hear someone else talk to you, and you want to talk to someone else, someone who's not, immediately invested.
Yeah, I agree. And I advocate for you ladies because I think a lot of mistakes are made because people are afraid to ask for help. And,
Yes.
at the end of the day, kind of like we've talked about on the program, it is a lot about this is really a part of raising your child. It's a part of raising your child and doing that well. And you may have a young kid like I do, 10 years old. And if you already recognize, man, I don't know where to even begin with this or how to start, this is why you need a coach, right? If you've been successful, you've started your own businesses, you may feel confident like, okay, I'm going to lead them in a direction and I know how to help them with that. And then that's a different scenario. But, I think definitely we have to invest early because by the time a kid is a senior in high school, I hate to say it, but they're pretty much set in their ways. Like they've developed their personality, they've developed their integrity. And 9 times out of 10, I can look at a junior, senior in high school and know exactly what they're going to be like when they're 50 years old because nothing changes. They've instilled those values. And so we've got to make sure we're molding them in those moldable years.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, if anybody in the audience wants to reach you, perhaps you want to tell us how they do. Kelly, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I can be reached at 847-997-1449. Anybody who has questions can just text college to that number. It's 847-997-1449.
And they can reach me at my email, which is coachliz@LizLewine, and that's LEWIN as in Nancy E. coachliz@lizlewine.com. And go to my website at www.lizlewine.com.
And if you have questions for me or you want more information about how to apply this in your health and wellness, that's what I do. I can be found on my website at www.theplant.com. Plant as in like PLANT, like, the things that grow in the ground. Theplantadventure.com. Also, my email is Chris, CHRIS, at theplantadventure.com. And if you want to go to the website, you can join my free online community to get tips and grow in your health and wellness.
Great. Thank you all so very much for all this great guidance. I know the audience has enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you again on Vision in Action Live.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation for today. I want to thank our guests, Kelly Kellem, Liz Lewine, and Chris Pratt for attending today. What a great set of perspectives on integrating education and career. And thank you for attending Vision in Action Live. We hope you got a lot out of this and answers to your burning questions. You can look forward to other panels that we plan on divorce, retirement, psychological profiles, and personal finances. We'll let you know when those happen. Vision in Action Live podcasts focus on interviews with subject matter experts and people leading directed lives so that you can see exactly what others accomplish towards their own personal development and how they do it. So check out the newsletters, podcasts, and extensive reference materials if you'd like at lifelongfulfillment.com. All of it's free to you. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast channel, and on KFRED Internet Radio. Again, I'm Jim Boswell, your host. You can reach me at jim@lifelongfulfillment.com.